It's been uncovered that Games Workshop and one of its Black Library novelists, Mike Brooks, has parodied British political pundit Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, turning him into a villain. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Wrote this up over at thatparkplace.com. And this comes to us courtesy of X user Chainsword 40k. He brought this to my attention, and I think brought more attention to it. If people had not read this book here by Brooks, The Necromunda Road to Redemption, he shared this. He says, just a friendly reminder that Mike Brooks' new novel, Lilith Hesperax, Queen of Knives, will be released later this year. I won't tell you what to do, but I am not buying it. Mike Brooks is obsessed with gender identity and one of the most woke Black Library authors. Here are some examples. From there, Chainsword 40k shared a number of screenshots to prove his assertions. First, he shared a screenshot of Brooks claiming that the Orc faction, the Freebooters, support pride, trans rights, and Black Lives Matter. Looks like he shared some of his own minis to try and prove that point. Don't think that is canon, but he's clearly showing kind of that he has been infected by a woke ideology and a number of its tentacles there: pride, trans rights, and Black Lives Matter. Next, he shared a list of Brooks's activism being inserted into Warhammer 40k lore. It says this: Black Library author who just needs to insert real life politics and a woke agenda into every piece of fiction he makes. Here are some of the finest examples in his novels. Wanted Dead includes LGBTQ characters, gangers that believe in the god Empress instead of Emperor. The Big Daka novel has a transgender Drukari. Brutal Kunin has a non-binary characters and gender-neutral pronouns. Renegades Hero Master has paraphrasing with Umberto Eco, writes in fascism. Road to Redemption, writing a villain known as Sargon of Akkad, which is an obvious jab at Sargon of Akkad. Carl Benjamin, lots of try-hard allegories of real-life politics. Lion, Sons of the Forest, has new pronouns and gender identity, implying that Space Marines could have some kind of romantic feelings for each other. And then in Rites of Passage, yep, you guessed it, new pronouns, pushing his own ideology into the characters' mouths. He then shared excerpts from various books to prove his point. He also shared the excerpt from Necromunda Road to Redemption that depicts Sargon of Akkad as a slave master getting killed by, Sargon of Akkad as a slave master getting killed by a character named Alan Chol. The excerpt reads here: Sargon of Akkad bellowed with rage, his voxcaster amplifying it until his war cry was nearly a weapon in its own right, and lumbered into a charge, both chain axes revving up until the whirl of their blades became a banshee scream. Alan Chol raised their silenced stub gun and trained it on the behemoth bearing down on them, an action which looked to Zeke to be the equivalent of menacing Sumpgrok, and with a toothpick. Shadows threw themselves on Akkad, slowing him, overwhelming him. The slave master lashed out with his chain axes, and one of his assailants was thrown clear, nearly bisected, but there were too many for him to fight. His arms were immobilized, and he was borne down to the ground, bellowing with impotent rage. Then a short, squat shape clambered onto his back and wrapped a chain, a slave's manacles, around Akad's neck and began to pull. Akad's breathing, hideously amplified by his voxcaster, became more and more ragged, more and more desperate. Then, as his executioner gave one final wrench on the chains, Sargon of Akkad's death rattle rang out. So he doesn't even really get a unique death either. It's literally Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars. It's pretty unimaginative there. Nevertheless, Benjamin reacted to being parodied by Games Workshop and Brooks writing on X: I'm officially canon in the Warhammer universe. He then asked if anyone can supply a proper description of this character. I'm happy to make him and paint him. Chainsword did that. This is what the description reads: that voice again, stentorian and rolling, packed with bombast and venom, a huge figure stepped into Zeke's view, silhouetted against the shifting blue light of the plasma regulars. He was close enough now to make out details: a pair of chain axes, one held casually in each hand, a breath griller over the man's mouth must contain the receiver for the Voxcaster speakers, which sat atop his armored pauldrons and sent his voice booming out into the underhive. His hair was long and dark and fell wetly over his chest, shoulders. His features were largely in the shadow, but what Zeke could see of them were suffused with rage. Sargon of Akkad, slave master. Zeke stumbled to a halt and raised his auto pistol, firing a spray of shells. His aim was off, and the rounds knocked sparks from Akad's chest plate instead of blowing apart his skull. The slave master staggered back but kept his feet. And Benjamin reacted to that, saying, "What a cool description." So I think it's pretty clear that Warhammer has indeed gone woke. We got this guy, Mike Brooks, putting all of his own personal activism into these various novels. They're going after real life personalities now, real life people, such as Carl Benjamin, obviously parroting him, turning him into a slave master, and then having him get killed. I think this is kind of sick stuff. Pretty vile stuff here from Mike Brooks. Pretty vile stuff from Games Workshop. But this is what you kind of expect from these people that are infected with these evil woke ideologies. They no longer see their fellow men as being made in the image and likeness of God. They don't see any dignity in their fellow men, and they want to treat them like absolute pieces of garbage. And I think that's what Brooks was doing here. I think he was writing out his own fan fiction in his head of what he wants to probably do to Carl Benjamin. It's absolutely sick. It's disgusting. I think Benjamin is kind of reacting to it in the proper way, basically just saying, like, thanks for making me such a cool character, and kind of owning it and taking away that power that Brooks was trying to kind of gain over him. But this is kind of what Games Workshop is now. Obviously, we're finding a little bit more about what they've been up to over the past couple of years, given the fact that there is much more focused interest in what they have been doing after the female Custodes debacle that they got themselves into last month. But let me know what you guys make of what Games Workshop and Mike Brooks did here to Carl Benjamin with parodying him in this Necromunda book, where they turn him into a slave master named Sargon of Akkad. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable to each other, but to always speak the truth.